I hope you're ready to learn. These are the 7 constellations. Gwarlai, Percival, Merlin, Vortimer, Mordred, Lanval, Arthur, and Igraine. Now here's the first thing you need to know. The order I just said aloud to you, that is the hierarchy. Mordred is not last. Mordred's in the very middle. There are 8. There are 2 main elven species that worshipped these gods. The sky elves, butterflies, and the night elves, bats. We're going to start with the night elves because the night elves came first. They only worshipped 4 of these guys. Mordred, Arthur, Gwarlai, Igraine. That was their whole pantheon. Sky elves came along and kind of co-opted it and added 4 of their own. We're not getting to the sky elves yet though. Night elves, they would choose one to follow. Followers of Gwarlai, they believed in emotion, passion, exploring and feeling. Followers of Merlin believed in searching out wisdom and connection. Followers of Mordred believed in helping others, assisting others, creating a community, serving, Followers of Igraine were the bad boys. Big believers in individuality. You follow your own passions, you follow your own path. It was kind of like the wild card of the 4 paths that you could choose. Okay, I fixed it. Now they have circles around them. I'm only going to be half in frame this entire time, so get used to that. In the Night Elf mythology, you'll notice that they are the primary colors and grayscale. You would devote your life to following the ideal that there's represented. Followers of Igraine didn't choose one to follow. They followed their own path. It was kind of like a mix of all 3. It was basically checking the other box on a questionnaire. In their mythology, these 4 were the founders of, not the universe, they were the constellations. Yes, there was the moon, but the moon came after. The stars came first. These 4, they created the universe. They know that the other gods existed. And it was kind of like a group project. This is who the Night Elves believed created their part of the universe, the part that they are connected to. Which I'm not sure if we established if they were on Earth before aeorian. Whatever the case, they believe Gwarlai created the land, Merlin created the air around it, Mordred created water, the ocean, Igraine, the individuals, made the people and the animals and the stuff like that. There was no real established relationship between these, considered to all be siblings. It was just they were created at the same time for the same purpose by the stars, which it sounds conflicting to say that the constellations were created by the stars, but Night Elf mythology actually kind of blends into the Sky Elf mythology, because I mentioned how the Sky Elves kind of kidnapped their 4 gods and ours now, and then added 4 of their own. The Night Elf mythology actually follows through. In Night Elf mythology, their gods did exist individually and separate from the Sky Elves, but when the Sky Elves came along and claimed them for their religion, added them to their pantheon, added the others. The Night Elves still only worshipped these 4. However, they were in the mythology, they had 4 more companions that joined them. Now we're going to start touching on Sky Elf mythology. So between the 2 mythologies, there's a very different interpretation of the constellations. The Night Elves believed them to be pure beings of stardust, partially taking on animalistic traits, but that was only one of 4 forms. Each of them decided as a gift to gift the others a form of their own devising. But then they all just kind of showed up with the same gift, and I was one of us has got to change. And they all got to change. They all took on 4 forms. Their bestial form. Merlin gave everybody a sort of ethereal, nebulous, cosmic form. Gwarlai gave everybody a form of emotion, an emotion that they would embody and exist within. Mordred, our special guy, Mordred gave everybody the fluidity to move through these forms. So he didn't technically bring a form, but he brought them that ability to change. His thing is serving others. So he didn't bring anything of his own, he simply enabled the others. My cat's scratching to be let in. Are you stealing my shoe? Hold on. He took my goddamn shoe. Now before we move on to the Sky Elves, I want to talk really quickly about the Night Elves' religious practices. The Night Elves had less of an organized religion, and it was more you lived life in the form of whichever one you chose. Each of the seasons was tied to summer, spring, autumn, winter. I'm not going to sit and explain the entire culture with the crystals and the clans and stuff, and the 4 different caves and their colors, because we'd be here all night. I'm not here to explain 2 races and 8 gods. So, get over it. Now it's time to talk about the colonizers. See, the Sky Elves came in a bit after the Night Elves. History's still a little fuzzy in this part because it was ages ago. Some people say that the Sky Elves were created as a sort of addition to the Night Elves, perhaps created from some of the Night Elves by Igraine. However, probably not. So the Sky Elves came into the Night Elves' homeland and they were we live here now. And they brought with them 4 of their own gods: Percival, Lanval, Vortimer, and Arthur. As they brought in their gods, things kind of changed with the mythology. Sky Elves believed that all 8 of these were ancient elves that had been granted power by the stars. All 8 of these were real people. We're not talking about them anymore. Real people who were each, let's say hypothetically, there are classes, if they hypothetically had professions or jobs or something. Bard, monk, ranger, wizard, fighter, sorcerer, rogue, and barbarian. I had to remember that, so. Oh, hold on. I'm back. These 8 were believed to be an adventuring party, but here's the thing. They actually integrated with the night elf things, and they are colonizers. They believed that Gwarlai, Arthur, Mordred, and Igraine were night elves. When they came upon the night elves, they had 4 special warriors among them. A bard, a ranger, a fighter, and a barbarian. They had these great beasts with them, these cosmic powers, familiars. A snake, a bird, a fish, and a shark. And the sky elves that came, they also had 4 warriors of great renown. Monk, wizard, sorcerer, and rogue. And they all have the names that are traditionally assigned to them. These 8 had to team up to stop some great black void that was coming upon them. And to do that, they needed to ascend to the sky, using their great powerful familiars that they got from the stars to become the stars, to become the constellations, to eternally fight off that void, the night sky. But here's the thing. People get tired. If they're fighting for millennia, at a certain point, they're going to wear themselves out. They're not going to be able to take the fighting anymore. So one of them made a sacrifice. Mordred, the fighter, the one who can take the big hits. See, both the Sky and Night Elves believe that Mordred was a being of sacrifice, and they can agree on what that sacrifice was. When these 8 were fighting the night sky, the endless void, as the constellations, they had to decide, were they going to find some way to trap all of them with this void in the night sky forever and keep fighting, or were they going to make a sacrifice? And that's where Mordred comes in. He decided to make a deal with the great king of the void. His head, his life, in exchange for just a permanent ceasefire. Neither side would be winning. The stars wouldn't expand to cover the sky. It wouldn't be a bright, brilliant sky like it used to be. By the way, the Sky and Night Elves used to believe that the entire sky was bright and shining, and there was no night. It was just kind of always day, you know? This deal meant that there would be night and there would be day, and the stars wouldn't be bright enough to shine during the day, but the night wouldn't encroach any more on the day than it already did. A nice 50-50 split. And it was agreed that the constellations would remain in the night sky to watch over and make sure that the King of the Void kept his promise. And the King of the Void would get his own sort of emissary in the daytime. That's why we can see the moon in the sky during the day. And now we're back to these motherfuckers. Their religious practices were kind of different than the Night Elves, because they believed that the origin of the constellations was with these 8 people, rather than coming before that. They gave them epithets that the Night Elves did not give to their gods. They also assigned them courts, instead of it being these 3 who are all over sort of concepts, and then Igraine who's sort of like the catch-all. Each of these had a specific domain. Now, according to the Sky Elf mythology, they actually had all of the wing colors and all the different houses before they came and met the other 4 warriors. They just believed that the Sky Elves, who were red, yellow, blue, and grayscale, were waiting for the god. They were empty, they were hollow in some way. Now the fun part. We get into the religion of it all. Now each of these had their own individual practices associated with them for the different Sky Elves of the houses that followed them. Before I get into it, I need to explain. Sky Elves would sometimes move between houses, and they had sort of their own special magic that would allow them to switch the color of their wings, or completely remove the color from their wings. Now that might sound odd, because you would think, hey, there is the grayscale dudes. So how would it work that removing the color from your wings would make you a lower class citizen in society? Well, you may have remembered I said this at the very beginning. This is the hierarchy order. Igraine is at the very bottom. Now, members of Igraine, they're not held in like low esteem or something. They're not like, oh, filthy peasants, you know? They are simply considered to be less connected. Since Igraine is the god of individuality, that means that Igraine is an individual. He doesn't really get involved with his Sky Elf. It was alright if you were born without color in your wings, because that just meant that you were a follower of Igraine, you know, because that's how the family worked. But to have the color removed from your wings, it was a different thing entirely. They weren't grayscale. They didn't have blacks and whites beautifully dappled together. It was all the same shade of gray. Your wings had no pattern, had no identifying features. They were just gray now. To have completely gray wings was to have no place in society. If you had gray wings, then you're not connected to the gods. Goddamn, I have to redraw that now. Motherfucking dumbass piece of shit. Why did you erase all of it? Now let's get into the different worship practices of the Sky Elves based on the god. Why did I redraw them just for this? Now let's go ahead and start off with red. The associated Sky Elf house for red, which would be Gwarlai the Serpent, also known as Gwarlai the Passionate, as the Sky Elves give all the gods epithets, would be House Kuipercloud. They all had Behemoth wings, and they believed in emotion and passion. Kuipercloud was big into following your heart. Romeo and Juliet, that shit would never happen with them because they're always going to side with Romeo and Juliet over the Montagues and Capulets. Now, one of House Kuiper Cloud's biggest beliefs was in passion and in connection. Wilson, cover your ears. This meant that one of the ways that they worshipped was... Okay, Wilson, you can uncover your ears now. House Kuiper Cloud believed that one of the best ways that you could worship Gorlai was through passion and connection. This could mean familial relationships, romantic relationships, platonic relationships. I'm not going to list off all of the ones in Greek because frankly I don't know them. The only thing that you're going to learn is that all of these houses and constellations had a holiday that was associated with them. Shout out to M. They came up with all the holidays. The holiday associated with House Kuiper Cloud was known as Hex Night. How do I explain this? Fantasy New Year's. House Kuiper Cloud were also known as something of artists because they believed in passion. That meant that they believed in following your passions, and that often meant artistry. Artists, craftsmen, weavers, sculptors, stuff like that. A lot of the art that you would find in Aeor would come from a Behemoth sky elf. Creating a piece of art was a huge part of Kuiper Cloud culture. Say that 10 times fast. Cloud culture, Kuiper Cloud culture, Kuiper Cloud culture. They also would do, and I hate to say this, a lot of slam poetry nights. House Kuiper Cloud also believed in solving problems emotionally, which is to say, if you walked into the Kuiper Cloud district, you would almost certainly see somebody having a fist fight. They were very spirited folk. Another reason that House Kuiper Cloud was so passionate about art was because they believed that Gorlai had been a bard. Gorlai was believed to have a lyre made from 2 fangs of a basilisk that she slew with her own hands. It was believed to have strings made out of pure comet tails, which is cool as hell. I don't care what anyone says. Fuck yeah, I'm cool. Wilson, I'm sorry that I said that they did orgies. I hope you covered your ears for that, man. Now that's about it for House Kuiper Cloud. I could get into more detail, but frankly, I don't want to. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next house, House Columnstar, which followed Percival the Merciful. I named him fucking Percival the Merciful. How the fuck do you draw a lizard? Anyway, House Columnstar elves were over 10 feet tall. Okay, no, but for real, let's get into Orange. The Orange House was known as House Columnstar. They had Atlas Moth wings, and they believed in compassion. They followed Percival the Merciful. I'm not going to apologize for that name. I think it's funny. Now, what's interesting about House Columnstar is how similar they were to House Starscale. We're going to go ahead and get to that later, but that is Mordred's house. The martyr, the inkfish, you're familiar. The main way that House Columnstar would worship their god, Percival the Merciful, I'm going to say it with a straight face next time. The main way that House Columnstar would worship their god, Percival the Merciful, was through acts of service. Now, what's interesting about that is it kind of crosses over into what House Starscale would do, that being the house that follows Mordred. But while House Starscale believed in sacrificing things for others, House Columnstar believed in helping them, not necessarily sacrificing what you had to do so. They were big on charity. They were big on there not being homeless people, and not like take them out back, give them the old Yeller treatment, helping them. If you went to House Columnstar's district, you were in good hands. They would frequently take in the poor. There was this kind of standing rule that if you visited a member of House Columnstar's home, it would be home. They would let you stay as long as you needed and help you get back on your feet. Compassion. They believed deeply in empathy and connecting to others. So, they were great therapists. I hate to say it. This is House Male Wife. House Columnstar were the philanthropists of the Sky Elf world. So you knew if a 10-fucking-foot tall elf started walking towards you at a high speed, they were going to give you cookies and not kill you. Percival's holiday was known as the Day of Mending. On the Day of Mending, you were expected to forgive people who had harmed you, let go of grudges, move on, and shed yourself of emotional burdens like that. But House Columnstar didn't only believe in compassion for others, they were also big advocates for compassion to yourself. They believed a lot in inner peace and self-mastery, which might seem like something more for Igraine, and it sort of was, but also Igraine is a wild boy. He's a bad boy. He's not like the other girls. Cannot remember. Brain no remember. The Yellow House was known as House Sunflare. These were polyphemus moths who followed Merlin the Hopeful, and their idea was, if you couldn't guess, hope. House Sunflare was maybe the most normal house. You know, they kind of acted like everyone else, but their big thing was hope. Never giving up. Believing in yourself, believing in others, just believing that there was going to be a better future ahead. Their holiday was known as Revelmeet. And I'm just going to go ahead and read M's description here. A day of celebration regarding the eldest child of a family. Many children are regarded as hope for a better future, and parents do their best to show how thankful they are for their future. This can be seen as a take your kid to work day. The way that House Sunflare would worship their god was just in everyday actions. They believed that the best way that they could worship their god was just to believe that there was a brighter future ahead and to work towards that brighter future. Some of the members of House Sunflare would lead into a sort of toxic hope, which I know might not be a thing, but I'm going to go ahead and say it is, where they would not act because they believed too much in hope. Over time, this came to sort of corrupt the house into that, and people who took too much action were seen as not hopeful enough. Members of House Sunflower were the most varied in their occupation because they believed that any job was valuable as long as you believed that you could do a good job of it. I guess the words I was looking for were toxic positivity. Real ones will get this reference. So the greenhouse, known as House Moonrise, they were lunar moths, and they believed deeply in reason and thought. They followed Vortimer the Studious, who was a turtle. Shit, that's a tortoise. They believed that the best way that they could worship their god was through thought and reason. Many members of House Moonrise were scholars, and one of their big things is that they believed, I just came up with this bullshit the other day, but basically they believed that candles helped bring like clarity of mind, and they were big fans of clarity of mind, so they just had like a fuck ton of candles. House Moonrise would have a lot of logical debates. They were frequently scholars, accountants, IT and support, nerds. Their associated holiday was known as the Feast of Runes. The thing about the Feast of Runes is that it was a day dedicated to improving yourself mentally. You would listen to great scholars, you would have debates, you would head to libraries, buy calculators. I don't fucking know. I forgot to do this for House Columnstar and Kuiper Cloud, I'm realizing now. I'm not gonna go back. House Kuiper Cloud would sometimes be too passionate and aggressive. House Columnstar would sometimes be kind of condescending, okay? House Moonrise, on the other hand, they could be completely detached from their emotions, just so reliant on their logic and reason that they don't really connect with other people emotionally. Why are we here? Just to suffer. Well, House Starscale certainly thought so. The Blue House, also known as House Starscale, might be the most interesting to you guys because this is the one that would follow Mordred the Martyr. They had Japanese silk moth wings, they believed in sacrifice, and again, they followed Mordred the Martyr, the Inkfish, as you might know him. Now, House Starscale is interesting because they're very similar to House Columnstar, which we discussed earlier. That's the one that followed Percival the Merciful. Fucking dumbass name. Instead of believing in helping others, they believed in sacrificing things for others. They sort of believed in karma, like the more you gave up, the more you would get back. Now, the problem with House Starscale is some of them would sacrifice too much. It was sort of toxic. Self didn't matter. All that mattered is what you could give to other people, and you would light yourself on fire and burn until there was nothing else left to burn to keep other people warm. Mordred's holiday was known as the Week of Epirus, and the whole thing about the Week of Epirus is that you would try to give things up, giving money to charity, going on a diet, destroying items, you know, normal stuff. Insert abortion joke. Another fun fact about this holiday is that some people took it a little too seriously. Generally, it was a week, right? So for a week, you would give something up and then you could just get it back after that. But more devoted members, usually of House Starscale, would choose one thing to give up for the rest of the year. Sometimes for the rest of their lives. And every year they'd pick one more thing to give up. I wonder if this spiked divorce rates. Now you're gonna have to forgive me for not having an indigo marker. I just used dark blue. So the Indigo House, known as House Void, followed Lonval the Dreamer, a snail. They were garden tiger moths, and their ideal was dreams, following your dreams, dreaming, sleeping, being a eepy boy. The missile is eepy. Confession time, the reason that Lonval is the snail of dreams is because I thought it would be really funny to have hopes and dreams. You know Undertale. They were big believers in the prophetic meaning of dreams. Most of them were like seers, or on the toxic end of the spectrum, lazy. A lot of them would just sleep all the time. Like if they could afford it, they would just be snoozing and napping and catching some Z's because that was how they connect to their god. They were eepy boys. There's really not much left to say. Their holiday was called Lonval's Wake, and the whole shtick was that you would take one day off and just rest for the entire day. The more religious would sleep all day because they believed that on the day of Lonval's Wake, any dreams you received would have prophecy, would be touched by Lonval. This is just a suggestion. Feels like that would be a great day to have a beach episode. We could all just sleep at the beach. Please God, please. Day off. Just a day off. The Violet House, also known as House Plasma, were salt marsh moths who believed in integrity and followed Arthur the Honorable, who is a butterfly. I know I mentioned earlier that they were all butterflies, but they are all sky elves or moths. Recorded all of this house already, but I forgot to unpause the camera. House Plasma was similar to House Sunflare in that they didn't really have any devoted religious practices that they would do, like active things to worship their god. It was more of a passive thing. Just like how House Sunflare believed in hope and like they would just be like, yes, shit's gonna be great eventually. House Plasma was just like passively extremely honest, and a member of House Plasma's word was their bond. If they told you something, by God, they were going to follow through. You could always trust one. What was I doing? Oh, shit. Now, it might be hard to think how this house could go toxic because their whole thing is just like, I always tell the truth and shit. They were kind of assholes. Hello, everyone. I definitely don't have the black and white house behind me. I am still on the purple house because I definitely remember to do their holiday. Their holiday is called the Haunt. Forgot to check what it is, hold on. The Haunt is basically when you like reflect on your past decisions and you journal about it and then you burn your journal. This is editing Mickey, you can tell it's me because I'm wearing a different shirt. I just forgot to film a transition between these two houses and that one's on me. So while I've referred to this house before as grayscale, House Nebula was actually kind of black and white, like a mix of the two, not really gray. The honor of being gray was kind of reserved for people who were cast out of all their houses. Oopsie daisy, you know how it is. Known as House Nebula, they had peppered moth wings and they believed in individuality. They followed Igraine the Genuine because they couldn't think of a better, not me. They couldn't think of a better epithet for him. Their big thing was individuality. I don't know what to tell you. Doing what makes you happy, living your dream. They all wore leather jackets all the time. Every single one of them rode a fucking motorcycle. You know, like Disney Channel movies. Like, be yourself. Fucking... I'm Radio Rebel. They're Radio Rebel. Igraine's holiday was known as Grave Feast. Fantasy Thanksgiving, everybody would bring their own dish to the table. Everybody, like if they couldn't cook, they would just help bring decorations or something. Everybody brought something to the party of their own to help express their individuality. And it's cool as hell, I don't care what you say. You popped off with this one. I'm not doing the drawings again. Let's go over what the Sky Elves believe to be the relationship between all of the constellations. I'm gonna go ahead and organize these into their believed groups. So these were the original Night Elves, these were the Sky Elves. These ones were all believed to be related / siblings. In a general sense, some people believe that they were just good friends. Merlin and Gwarlai were excellent friends, but they were generally considered to be siblings. Igraine was believed to be Mordred's twin. The other relationships were believed to be that Mordred and Arthur were excellent friends. Vortimer's a bad bitch. Percival and Vortimer were childhood best friends, and Lonval and Gwarlai were believed to be... Gwarlai was considered the leader of the group. She's the one who inspired them, wrote their story. Her second in command was Percival, followed by Merlin. They were like the main three, like the leadership of the group. President, vice president, I don't know, fucking secretary. Although Igraine would technically be at the end because he is the black and white. He's the wild card. He's the bad boy. I have told you so many times, leather jackets, motorcycles. So he was kind of like a tertiary kind of leader. People looked to him for inspiration. Down here, we're kind of like the tertiary cast, you know? Like these are the primary protagonists. This is bitch an anti-hero. I don't know, man. He wasn't an anti-hero, he was a hero, but he's like kind of a badass, you know? These guys were like the secondary cast. These three were at the top. Then came Igraine, then came Mordred. Next came, and like almost at the same level as Mordred, Vortimer, and then at the very bottom were Lonval and Arthur. They fit together, that's so nice. These three were like the leaders. Igraine was kind of the bad boy, inspiration, motorcycle rider. Mordred and Vortimer, Mordred was only slightly higher than Vortimer on the social ladder due to being one of the original four. But Vortimer was like the scholar of the group, the one who informed them, strategized, made the battle plans. And Mordred was like the fearless one, the one who would do anything and give anything to see found family safe. Down here, Lonval and Arthur were kind of interesting because neither of them were a member of the original four, but they were believed to be their own separate. Some people only worshipped these two. Lonval didn't contribute materially so much to the group, so much as staying back at camp, bringing them their prophecies, seeing their future. It was actually Lonval who said that they would need to make an ultimate sacrifice to be able to put back the Void King. She was the one who knew that only through an ultimate sacrifice could they bring it into the war that would have otherwise gone on forever. And Mordred was the one who offered to do that sacrifice. They were believed to be close roommates, historically speaking. Arthur's kind of weird because he's like, God, I hate to say it, he's like an anime main character where like you got all these cool ass people with their powers. He just got isekai'd in. He was like the audience's point of reference. Here's all you need to know. These 8 were at war with this guy who is the night sky. They are all constellations. Mordred was sacrificed to end the war forever on the advice of Lonval, the snail. They all had magical familiars from the stars. Now they're fucking gods. I don't know what to tell you. I hope this was at all helpful. Love you all to pieces. Guys, it's editing Mickey again. I just didn't film an end to the video, I guess. So remember to like, comment,